Hey, what's up guys? So welcome to this episode of What's the Meta, and this is going to be, what the meta currently looks like, as well as tips, what cards you can side deck or even main deck to counter some of these decks. So that said, I would say these are the four most popular decks currently. I've kind of separated what's the most popular by the normal monsters. Like this section is like the most popular, then we go over here to number 2 and then 3. There's actually no card that has a number 3 in it. So 30,000-year-old white turtle will be the placeholder for the card that's number 3. But that said, Dino Rabbits, it's a very popular deck. A lot of people just running this card in general, and like Gem Knights are still viable, I would say, now that Rabbit got the reprint. So yeah, be expected to play against Dino Rabbits a lot now, because that entire deck essentially got its reprint, so be ready for that. Then the Mermails. Now, the Mermails are such a strong archetype, and I still really don't know what essentially can really beat them. This deck is it's so fast, it can OTK, and it nets so much little advantage, and it can overextend and not get punished for it. And, everything just got printed out, from Abyss Rising, and Sneak Peek and stuff like that, so this is a very strong deck as well. But yeah, we'll get into the what to side or main deck against most of these decks in a moment. But yeah, Dark World's pretty self-explanatory. 6 Samurais. Now, I'm surprised that people still love this deck, which is fine because, it is a budget deck too, so that's good for people that want to jump into it. But this deck, it's really opening or having Gateway. It really just puts the deck at such a high tier. When you open up Gateway, it makes it a completely different deck. Like, it really nets so much advantage. But yeah, 6 Samurais, be on the lookout for those. Next up, I would say for these aren't essentially like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. They're kind of just like what's the most popular. But that said, there's been a lot of the Spellbook archetype. The Mermail's looking really strong right now. I honestly feel like Mermails are a stronger archetype over the Prophecies, but the Prophecies, or the Spellbooks, are getting a lot more support later on. I don't know if the Mermail are getting more support in the future from Cosmo Blazer, but it looks like the Spellbooks are going to be getting more support. And also they're light and dark, so Chaos Sorcerer and Black Lotus Soldier will fit right into this deck. But that said, that's a very popular deck. Hero's still looking relatively popular. Chaos Dragon's still relatively popular. And then Girgas, they're still looking pretty strong, the Girga character. There's different ways to play it. And then Agent's still relatively popular. And then Wind-Ups here, not as popular anymore. It could be definitely due to, I think it's almost 100% due to the reprint of Max C, as well as, maybe the Wind-Up players just moved on to another deck. But I really have seen a lot less Wind-Up players now. I think that this deck is really where it's at, where you can like swarm, and you can do a lot of things with the deck, which is really cool. But yeah, I think it was maybe due to the reprint of Max C, because like Max C and Valor, they really do hurt Wind-Ups quite a bit when they're activated at the right time. But yeah, these are other decks that I would say are still relatively popular, and you just gotta watch out for them. Gravekeepers, Monarchs. Actually, Monarchs have a really good matchup against a lot of different decks, so be ready for those. Then Plants, any Synchro, Quick Draw. There's a whole bunch of ways to play it. And actually, I haven't really seen any Lavals in a while, which is, for me, I think that, the whole Plant engine, it can play around a lot more than the Rekindling Lavals, because Rekindling Lavals pretty much like you just go through everything and you just hope to get it, and sometimes the deck doesn't run that many traps, so you can kind of just OTK them. Mermails do an excellent job against that deck, because they're like, oh, you got a whole bunch of cards, it's cool, let me just OTK you. You can have all the cards in your hand, in your graveyard. I'll OTK you before you can activate Rekindling. But, if you can get Rekindling out and you get a first turn Quasar, like, it's pretty difficult to deal with. And then Grand Soul Psychics, they just kind of died down, really. Because they haven't done, I don't think they've done anything. I mean, Jeff Jones topped with it, and then that was pretty much it. And then this is just a deck that will probably always be popular, because it can always just win simply because it's Lightsworn. So Lightsworn still, it's always been popular. Then X-Sabers, I've seen a few people play X-Sabers. I mean, it's still a decent deck, and everything got its reprint, which is strange because everything. Like, for X-Sabers, they got their reprints, and then, like, the deck really didn't really see too much play. But yeah, now that we know what the meta kind of looks like, let's look for, some cards that are pretty good against most of these decks. Torrential Tribute is a great card against, anything that overextends. Like, 6 Samurais, they basically need to, like, special bunch from their hand. If you can Torrential at the right moment before Sheehan is summoned, you'll be good to go. You're usually +1 or 2. Pretty good card. And then D-Prison actually is pretty decent against, the Dark Worlds, also Bottomless. These are both great cards. Same thing against Agent, Bottomless, and Deep Prison. Though they are pretty good because when you banish like Venus, sometimes it actually hurts them a lot more than you'd think. Next up, Compulse, I would say. Compulse is pretty good because when they summon their first Dark World, you have to control a face-up Dark World. So you just, as soon as they summon their Dark World, you can use Book of Moon too, that also works. But Compulse, it's just a more versatile card, and it's always chainable, which is awesome. And this card is actually pretty good. Sometimes people they overextend, and if you can compulse at the right time, it really does hurt them. And then if you can come back with like a Dark Hole or something when they attempt to go for their OTK. And this card is phenomenally good against Elemental Heroes, I would say, because when they go for their Shining, you can put the Shining right back in their extra deck, and then they do not get to add the cards, and that really does make a big difference. Slamine Eater is also a pretty decent card against some decks. I know against Dino Rabbit it's really good, and this deck is pretty popular right now. So definitely keep these in your side decks. Slamine Eater is still a very viable card. Also, it's really good, really good against Blackwings. Next up, Thunder King. Thunder King shuts down I would say, almost like 80% of the decks I just mentioned above. The only thing that Thunder King doesn't hurt is basically Dark Worlds. I mean, they'll stop one search for like Snow. But then, really, that's I mean, Lightsworn, it can stop the summon of JD, so it's okay. But the thing is, I would say the only deck that it really doesn't hurt, well, actually Monarchs. It doesn't do anything against Monarchs. But if you even against Gravekeepers, you hit a Recruiter at the right moment, it helps out a lot. And as far as the Girga archetype, there's the Machina build. There's so many ways to just play it in general. But yeah, Cyber Dragon's pretty good because you can contact fusion with their entire side of their field. So that means basically you summon Cyber Dragon, they can have all the monsters, and you can still fusion without polymerization. You just contact fusion. And then lastly, Maxi is looking pretty good because when the Mermelts go off, especially when they summon Deep Sea Diva, because all of them will play Deep Sea Diva, and as soon as they summon Diva, they're pretty much in a bad spot if you Maxi, because you usually can at least +1 off of it. Also, Tour Guide's just a really popular card in general, and against most of these decks, there are some decks that inherent special summon, like Grapha is an inherent special summon, Judgment Dragon is an inherent special summon, so keep in mind, you cannot activate Maxi when your opponent goes for Judgment Dragon or Black Luster Soldier. Any card that just literally special summons itself from the hand, it doesn't have like an effect or anything, you can't essentially max C when they just summon the monster. So that's just also just a quick tip. But yeah, I would say, I mean, pretty much most of these cards are seeing play anyways, but Compulse might not be a card that everyone is playing at the moment, and it is a pretty good card at the right moment against a lot of different decks. Like Agents, when they go for Gotchi and they attack you for 2,000, if you have a monster that has, let's say, 1,900 attack, and you change to Compulse after they've already declared their attack, let's say for example Venus is with a Gotchi, and she attacks into Thunder King, and then you activate Compulse on the Gotchi goes back to the extra deck, and then Venus is now at 16. She's already declared the attack, so that means she will lose against Thunder King, and Thunder King is pretty awesome against Agents sometimes. Sometimes the Agent player will just go for Shine Ball, and then they'll just attack over your Thunder King. It happens. But yeah, it does prevent the Earth Search, it does prevent Hyperion from coming out. But sometimes they just drop multiple Hyperions, which something I do a lot when people summon Thunder King on me. But yeah, that's what the meta currently looks like, and I hope this helps you guys kind of battle the meta a little bit and have a better understanding of what the game kind of looks like at this moment. But yeah, if there's any other decks you think I forgot to mention, but yeah, this is what I've been seeing on Dueling Network, pretty much from like the 1200 and up, because I think that is kind of where the better players are, kind of playing, the better decks. I don't think you'll run into something like Sasuke Samurai. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope this helps you out. Agent White Dragon, signing out.